As the great independent director Mr. Werner Herzog once said, I despise formal restaurants. I find all of that formality to be very base and vile. I would much rather eat potato chips on the sidewalk.
Hello and welcome to Potato Chips on the Sidewalk. I'm Barbecue Benjamin. Joining me today is...
It is Crystal Clear Audio Jacob.
Let's not jinx that one, shall we?
Look, okay. Well, sorry if to the listener who might have been listening to some of the recent episodes, my my sound has been a bit weird. So it turns out my laptop had a lot of bloatware on it, and which I'd recently just gotten, and there was some shitty ass AI noise reduction filter that essentially would try to pick up anything, try and not pick up anything that isn't a voice. So we can't clap for syncing purposes. You couldn't hear me laugh. And if I did laugh and speak, it'd have a weird it was weird. But yeah, hopefully, the waveform's looking good, but that should not be a problem going forward.
Okay. Hopefully. Anyway, we're talking today about a little show. Ever heard of it? Succession, Season 4, Episode 9, Church and State. So it's a clever title because they're in a church and there's something going on with, the election and all that kind of. So well done, Jesse Armstrong. That's where you're a genius in your episode titles. Anyway, before we get into it, what did you think of this episode overall, Jacob, as a penultimate episode to the entire series?
Look, I can't ask for a better, on the off chance that the season doesn't end well with this final episode, I can't really complain due to how good this has been. This season has been just I know how some people are saying this season's gone on too fast.
Yeah,
I disagree. I think the show is ending at the perfect time, honestly. I think this entire season has had this real palpable sense of snowballing, so everything just going down faster, bigger, more extreme the more it goes on. And I think that hasn't been exemplified, that can be exemplified the most by this episode, which, while is quote unquote a calmer episode than some of the previous ones, there's still so much going on, and the power dynamics are just reaching to this horrible point of dread. And yeah, I'm astounded. I think this season honestly might be a masterpiece. And yourself?
Wise to put the funeral in the second last episode, where it's kind of it was always going to be an emotional crux for every one of the Roy children and set them on the path. Because is the idea that the next episode is going to be the shareholder meeting?
Yeah.
So they put them all on the path to make mistakes at that shareholder meeting and have one of them come out on top.
If there's one thing about this show is someone's gonna fuck up eventually.
Yeah. So the episode starts with Roman rehearsing his eulogy for Logan, and I think the moment you see someone rehearsing something, they're gonna fuck it up.
Exactly.
And I technically don't believe he fucked it up. I just don't think he was ever gonna be able to do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he's probably the least emotionally stable out of the three extremely emotionally unstable siblings, but he's probably like the least.
Yeah.
And he was never up for the task. So watching him rehearse it with such confidence, I was like, I did feel sorry for him, but also like on the back of my mind, it was like remembering where we saw him like pretty much like, I don't know, like 12, 11, 10, 8 hours ago in the timeline of the show. I was kind of like, oh no,
Yeah.
you're still a bit of a piece of shit, and he was acting like it. In that he
Yeah,
he felt invincible after
you kind
what he
of
did.
installed a Nazi into power. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. That's what I said. Like, you know, like at the end of the day, we actually don't know how the election's gonna pan out in the end, and we probably never
won't.
We probably never will. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at this time, like Romans basically caused, you know, New York City to, and probably the entire country. I think they like Tom mentions there's like fires in Milwaukee or something due to the you know, like the Wisconsin count. Like Roman like is the one that caused all this, like enabled by Kendall. But you know, like Roman has sent the country into a frenzy, and Rava is rightfully scared for the safety of her Roy children, you know, like, and tries to get them out of the city. Like, I like Kendall's still the only one I want to root for, but like the way he treats Rava and Jess
in
this like first few minutes is just kind of like,
he really does make it hard to
still root for him.
Yeah, I mean, none of the characters in this, I think, are rootable, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I think it also kind of shows that Kendall is the one to succeed Logan. Like, you know,
he's probably the most natural. But that's the thing. It's we'll get into this later. But does the next is that what people want though? Do they want the next Logan, or is this something that only the Roys are clinging onto?
Well, what I was gonna say is like it shows that he is like the most like Logan when you put it into context. Like Shiv's eulogy for him, where she says that, like, you know, like he couldn't fit an entire woman in his head, and when he's talking to Rava about how he'll take her to court to get his kids to the grandfather's funeral, like not even thinking about the kids, just thinking about like what he wants. And then when he tells Jess to, you know, like what's going on, like what do you need to meet with me about, just tell me right now. And then she tells him that she wants to quit, and he's like berates her for telling him on the day of his dad's funeral. You know, like that feels very much like Logan, you know, like where Logan would say, oh, I can take any criticism, and then, you know, hit Roman, and then Kendall would be like, don't fucking touch him and shit, you know, like, yeah, I feel like by the end of the series, we'll talk about it when we think who's going to win at the end of this episode, but I feel like at the end of this episode, we'll feel about Kendall the way we felt about Logan by the end of the series.
Yeah, look, I think the way that people have been, I guess, predicting the end of the show since its full 4 seasons been around is like, if Kendall does become CEO or on top, he will be his father, and that's the tragedy of the show. Like, again, it's like the people have been making Michael Corleone comparisons to Kendall this entire time, and
as I did last week.
Yeah, exactly. But like, him speaking to Rava this week especially reminded me of that.
Oh yeah, 100%. So moving further into the episode, like Greg leaves Tom at ATM and rides his hire bike to the funeral, but gets all sweaty to so we can meet Mencken and get in with Mattson. This is where I think the Greg argument comes in a lot in this particular episode. I said a few episodes ago that I think, because the joke was in season 1, it'll be cousin Greg, he'll just be the bumbling idiot who comes out on top. That was a joke, and I wasn't confident of that earlier on in this season, but the last couple episodes, he's been weaseling his way in, and with Mattson to be this puppet, basically. He's basically been showing how loyal of a idiot soldier he is with the mass layoffs, and just I think the Greg argument is palpable at this point.
I agree. I'll go into it later, but look, it's did you mention the fact that Mattson found out about Shiv's pregnancy?
Well, she didn't do it very secretively in the last episode when she tells him
No, but she didn't tell Mattson that, right?
That's what I mean, yeah. He said that he heard that she was.
Yeah, and I feel like that can only really make... Is that... You okay? Oh wait, sorry, some noise just came up on my phone for some reason. But no, it's I feel like Mattson had to have heard that from Greg. I don't know who else he would have heard that from.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, yeah. But
again, I'm not 100% sure Greg will come up on top, but I think Greg will, quote unquote, win something.
Yeah, Greg will be comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of people finding out that Shiv's pregnant, how awful are the kid's mum, Caroline?
Well, yeah, she's obviously she just kind of wants to have her cake and eat it too with the kids.
She's just so condescending and just abusive to her children in a way that's just
yeah,
I can't 100%. Even describe it. It's horrible to watch. Where when Greg finally arrives at the wake at the end of the show. No, when Tom finally arrives, and he's like, "Fucking hell, your mum!" And then her hapless husband, Peter,
the fucking clout chaser.
Yeah,
yeah. God,
it's just when
he probably has to for someone who's only been in the show for such a small amount of time, he has to be one of the most irritating characters.
But yeah, I think it's probably his second episode or third at most.
Yeah, I just hate him.
Yeah, and it's just so funny when Greg weasels his way into being one of the people to walk the coffin down the aisle, and, and then Greg's like, "Oh, Tom kind of offered it to me," and then Shiv's just like, "Yes, Greg, you can," and she just looks at Peter no, the fuck, he's just a horrible guy.
Yeah.
And then I want to say James Cromwell hasn't been in the show too much, but when he turns up, he just spits.
No. The dude rocked up and decided onto set that day and decided he was going to win a guest actor Emmy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is as much as I love, Murray Bartlett and Nick Offerman in The Last of Us, James Cromwell was just I'll just yoink that out of your hands and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And when he just stands up to give the speech when he's called up, and then it's just like he like bats Greg and Roman away, just being like, "Fuck off!" Like, I'm doing this, like, very Loganish, and he just. I thought his speech was very sweet, honestly. Like, he, as much as he like, I think, is it season 2, with the L to the OG episode.
Yeah.
When he's like, they're dedicating the School of Journalism to Logan Roy. And he's like, this, the Logan Roy School of Journalism, what's next? And I can't remember the example he gives, but it's just like the Genghis Khan School of World Peace or something like that. It's like something along those lines. And he hated everything his brother did, but then when he kind of makes an excuse for him with like the idea that his what do you call it, his guilt for like infecting their little sister with polio.
Well, yeah. Again, not something that's like ever confirmed, but he believes he infected her with polio. Yeah, no, that's chilling. It makes the show does a really good job at making you feel Logan's presence post death. You know.
Because it's like, for us, it's been, what, 6 weeks since he died? But it's been 6 days for the for the family in the show.
Yeah, and I think the fact that there's a line that Cromwell says about how his aunt and uncle didn't give him.
It didn't disabuse him of the notion.
Yeah, and that which really puts into context the that chilling shot in season 2 of the scars on Logan's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's like not making excuses for like Logan Roy, one of the probably
worst people
who have ever lived.
Yes.
But you could, as a viewer, if you watch closely throughout the series, you can draw a line. To what led him there, and then you don't become like that without something bad in your life going on. Yeah, but also, there's no excuses at the same time.
There's no excuse, but that's how bad people are made.
Yeah, and then here comes Kieran Culkin to win his lead actor Emmy. I think this is where it shows it is a mistake to submit himself as a lead actor, because Roman, as much as he is in prominence, this sequence is what shows to me that he is a supporting character, just overall.
I understand, but also I think he's got the Emmy in the bag. So.
Oh, really? You think he's going to beat Jeremy Strong?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Probably. Well, I'm sorry, that eulogy scene is probably got to. That's an awards clip scene if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. But that's why I think it's a bag for supporting actor. But
I understand, but look, I know everyone I've spoken to about the show thinks he deserves the Emmy out of all the actors in the show, so yeah, I think he's. I can, unless Kendall has a really big thing, I can't see Kieran Culkin not being the front runner in that respect. Okay.
Anyway, so Roman goes up to give his eulogy, but he's absolutely shaken by Ewan Roy's we'll call him James Cromwell the entire time, You and
Yeah.
Rose, basically, like he takes, like he gives the context of why he thinks Logan was the way he was, but
Yeah.
then utterly takes an excuse and just like says like, beyond all that, he did so much worse in this world than anyone else, and he can't forgive him for it.
Yeah.
Um, and then Roman comes up, like it cuts to Roman during Ewan's speech, and you can see him start to break down, being like, "Oh my fucking god!" Like he had this whole, like when he was rehearsing, he had this whole thing planned out with calling Logan great in like the true sense of the word, where like he was large and like his influence and all that, like, and then he starts to like not believe it, and he's at the microphone, like he can't even like speak loud enough for it to be amplified.
Yeah.
He's just starts breaking down, and they go up and take him down, and Kendall comes up to, like improvise like this speech, and just kind of shows that, like beyond everything, Kendall is the sibling out of the three of them that is just like he's built for this more than anyone. And it like that viral tweet that went around
Sorry.
like actors are like scary
Yes.
because like
yes.
how can Kieran Culkin make that face just for no reason?
That's acting, baby.
Yeah, it's acting, like he's really good at it. And like, what did you think of Kendall's speech? Do you think he believed much of it?
Again, it's like it's hard because like if he does, it's like some weird thing where he's deluded himself into believing it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like he kept saying like, "Oh, he's like a terrible force," but I think Kendall in the last however long it's been since the show started has spent most time either hating his father or being held captive by his father.
Yeah.
So
well, again, they're all again. I think that's the right way to put it. Is they've all been captive by their father, and even especially in deaths, they seem more captive, like captured by him.
Yeah.
Than even when he was alive.
Yeah. And then we had Shiv come up, and she basically
look, this is both Kendall and Shiv's audition tape.
You mean Romans?
What?
You said audition tape to
no,
be CEO.
For CEO. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I think it cuts to Mencken when Roman's giving his speech, and Mencken's just like, "Oh, he's crying. That's not very right wing of you." Yeah. He just kind of like, you can see the moment his like faith in Roman just disappears, like Ralph Wiggum's Heartbreaking on TV.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And then Shiv comes up and describes how Logan never really saw her as a full person. Like she could never be like an entire entity to her other than like his daughter. And she kind of just comes to a realization where like I think there's a moment where she's just completely, she rethinks everything she thought about him up on that stage.
Yeah.
And it's Sarah Snook, like she's she's good. um, and then funeral ends. At this point, have we talked about how? Oh no, yeah. Shiv basically says to, what's his name? Alexander Skarsgård, Lucas, that a way to get around Mencken blocking the deal would be to install an American CEO.
Yeah.
Instead from, like just blocking the deal altogether. And Shiv thinks that's herself. And the problem with Shiv is that she makes all these grand plans and she can't execute them. So like when she's up on that stage, she's not really like, I don't know. She's only thinking inward is what I think about Shiv ultimately. Where it's all about what she thinks and not how she's like perceived to the outside world. Like she says to Mattson, she's okay with being hated. Like if she's like a absentee mother while she's being CEO, and she's not really thinking about anything beyond winning.
And and she also forgets that, like, well, not forgets, but it's like Mattson is Mattson is a full-on misogynist. Like he 100% would look down on her for being pregnant. As like unfair as that is, it's like, yeah, that would affect her chances with Mattson a lot. And that's the thing. Mattson says a US CEO could work, not
like you
necessarily.
Could work.
Yeah. Again, Greg.
And then they go to Logan's burial in the most $5 million mausoleum. Like it's just kind of disgusting. Like you're dead. You need to live in a $5 million house, but you're dead. Like, and the only person seemed to be excited about it is Connor.
Oh, I also love like the fact there were other places for like other places for coffins.
Yeah, and like Connor's like, I'll take a top bunk. Just can't like what are you?
Oh, Connor's great.
Connor's like we don't talk much about like Alan Ruck, but hiring someone to play that role and getting him is kind of like a stroke of genius. He plays the role hilariously well, and
he's brilliant. Yeah.
And then during the actual burial ceremony, like Roman can't deal with it, and he just goes back in the car, and I think the most odd scene of the episode for me was when Shiv walks up to Carl and Frank, and she's like, "Was Dad a bad guy?" And it's like, Shiv, like in like the second episode of the entire show, like he tries to like put her hand down his pants.
Yeah.
Like he's never been like she knows this, but like I also think Carl and Frank's like response to it is just such a nothing corporate response. You're like, oh, he was a dog. He was who he was. Like there was no they didn't have any true things to say at all.
They're Carl and Frank.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to talk about during these scenes?
Not necessarily. Obviously, Hugo is still submissive to Kendall.
Oh yeah.
Woof woof.
Well, who's he got on his side now? He's got Frank and Hugo.
Frank, Hugo, yeah, probably some others.
That's about it so far, I think.
That we know of.
Yeah. And then at the wake, like everybody swarms Mencken, and like I think this is like the nail in the coffin for like most of the family, because like all
They're
of
just
them
so
at once,
pathetically-
just like all like groveling to him, like
Oh yeah,
straight away.
it's genuinely pathetic.
Yeah. And I think, like Mencken's receptive to the American CEO idea, but as soon as he like talks to Roman, he's just like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And like he's just immediately like walking it all back because of Roman's perceived weakness in his eyes now. And like, and she just debases herself, saying that, like, I can like anyone I want to. I'll do what I need to. Like, she's meant to be the one with convictions.
Yeah,
And she just doesn't have any at all.
yeah,
And then we have Tom arrive, and he's just a broken down man at this point. Like he's like groveling
hasn't slept
to
for like
48 hours probably, and then he's groveling to Mencken from afar, being like, tell him I was the one who made the decision. Like he can't, like, he's only looking for a way up, and he can hardly hide any of it. And then, like, I guess, like, this is the second time that Tom and Shiv have gone back together, like, slightly.
Yeah.
In the last, like, I don't know how long, like,
Yeah.
Like, she lets him go back to the hotel, and it's a very funny line when he talks about, like, oh yeah, people at the hotel know me, and I fucking hate that. Like, I don't want, like, these workers to know me, which is funny, because, like, like, working in retail, like, when I see repeat people, I shouldn't remember you. Like, if you're that much of an annoyance to me, this is like from the other side.
Yeah.
You're like, as if I shouldn't know someone just from the general public that I have no connection to.
Yeah.
That's why I just found it funny. And then, Kendall is just angry with Roman. He's just like, like, you fucked it with Mencken, like, he's gonna fuck us over.
Yeah.
And Roman's just having a terrible, terrible day. Like, Carl's trying to show Frank the video of Roman, like, crying at the funeral, and Frank's like disgusted with it. He's just like, it's like, don't show me that. That's like horrible. Like, put that away. Like, it's stop shoving that in my face. Like, it's horrible. He feels bad for the kid, which I feel bad for Roman as well. And then, like, Kendall's like, you fucked everything up. And then Kendall, no, and then Roman, like, he decides to walk into the riot that he started.
Yes.
Which is, like, what?
Self-sabotage.
Yeah, like, it was kind of like what's like the opposite of a suicide by cop? Like.
Yeah, he's like, he was punishing himself.
Yeah.
Like.
And he's taking his anger out on the people that he provoked.
Exactly, but also, obviously, there's this whole string of how he is a stickler for getting abused, and
like a bit of like masochism.
So that's that. Yeah,
and that's where the episode ends with him. He's curled up in a bowl and just getting like trampled on.
Yeah,
and that's where we're left with. We got 90 minutes of Succession left.
Gee.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? Who do you
Gee.
think lost the most power in this episode? I think there's only one real answer.
One real answer. I think there's a few.
I think it's Roman. Yeah, it's Roman.
But
100%. Who else do you think?
I don't know. I think I don't think Shiv realizes how much power she's lost, but she also has. Like,
Yeah, 100%. Anyone else?
Whereas I feel like Roman 100% knows.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone else necessarily. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I think it's definitely Roman. Like he's just dropped so far down, and he's just yeah.
Well, that's the great irony. It's like he didn't. His downfall wasn't because he was like he was inappropriate. It was actually because he had a
real human moment.
A real human moment at an understandable time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do you think gained the most?
Probably is it weird to is it pretentious to say Logan?
Kind of, yeah. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about people in play.
Well, probably Mattson.
Yeah, I think Mattson. I also kind of think Greg.
Yeah, well, look, it's like Greg is like a TBD for me, but I get that. I think it's all... Everything is playing into Mattson's hands now, though.
Yeah.
So I'd say he's gained the most power, considering literally just the day before he thought he was pretty much all fucked.
Yeah, 100%. And who do we think comes out on top in next week? We have only like 5 days left before we find out.
I know people are criticizing everyone saying Greg, but I'd say it's either Greg or Kendall.
Yeah.
Or it's like Stewie. like some, it's like, for me, like both Greg and Kendall make thematic sense, like depending on the direction. Like Kendall in terms of being the corrupted, Greg is the more cynical ending because it just kind of shows that the whole Roy kids' pursuit of their father was just kind of meaningless, and Greg is kind of just that nothing character that can be controlled. Like Greg actually makes the most sense in a logical sense in a way. Like, Mattson can control him. He can pretend to be a Roy. He's like, yeah, he kind of bends to power easily. So he's like the anti-Logan. Like, yeah. So I'm trying to think on a thematic level. I know some people on Twitter saying, "Oh, that would be too soap opera-ish," and it's like, look, the show for things that should be soap opera-ish can manage to like not do it that way. So like, yeah, I'm gonna say Greg for now, but I know I'm probably wrong. Like, Jesse Armstrong is very good at subverting expectations. Yourself?
The thing for me is I just think the show has always been about Kendall.
Yeah.
Like, it is Kendall's story more than anything.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, it's the very first scene when he's in the car listening to his rap music, being a big old dork.
Yeah.
I feel like the final scene is when could be like he's listening to his rap music, but he's sad this time, not elated.
Well, yeah, I think if Kendall comes out on top, he won't be happy about it.
Yeah,
he'll realize he's just been properly corrupted. What do the betting markets say now? I've been looking at the betting markets. Greg is on top right now at $2.50. So he's overtaken Shiv at $3.25. Tom is at $4. I don't mind that. Kendall's at $5.
I also just want to say that like betting markets are just like how many people are betting on it. It doesn't mean anything.
I know. I just want to see what the zeitgeist is thinking. You know.
Yeah, I think Kendall. I can't see anything else but Kendall, just in a sad way.
Yeah,
and
I can see that. Like, again, I think minimum for Greg is Greg quote unquote wins in some way, but I don't necessarily think that means he's CEO. That's just, you know, Kendall's the obvious answer.
Greg wins by getting a paycheck at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, can't wait for next week. I've actually got the day off work, so I don't have to wait to get home and have it spoiled for me. I can watch it straight away, which I am very, very, very happy about. Yeah, like it's woof. I can't believe it's ending. TV's ending next week.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, oh no. No, I'm just sad.
Yeah, it's sad. But,
actually,
oh well.
And one other prediction.
Yep.
We didn't mention that Kendall asked Logan's old bodyguard to be his bodyguard.
Yep.
Do we think, because he knows about the killing of the waiter in the first season, do we think that comes out in the next episode publicly?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. Like, I think Kendall actually made, again, it's a risky move, but it's the most upside, because like I think Kendall asked not just to test the waters, but to also be like, okay, this guy was loyal to Logan. You know, let's see how loyal he really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think it'd be weird for the show not to have it brought up in any way at all.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's only brought up in a non-verbal way.
Yeah, I just think it has to be mentioned at all. I wouldn't think that, but the only reason I do is that I don't think Jesse Armstrong would have had Kendall tell Shiv and Roman about it unless it was going to come back involving them some way.
I understand, yeah. It's, again, like that's the thing. It's like there's so many ammunition against all the characters now. Like anyone who looks likely could fall. Like, yeah, like again, like I say this about Greg, but like Greg could gain a lot of power, but also everything could be pinned on him. Like,
yeah. Anyway,
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Next week, the end of TV.
All right.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
TV.